Welcome back for day 2 of our board workshop. Board Member Otto, I'm going to put you on the spot. You want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
No. Oh, sure.
So yesterday, even though we got a little bit behind and went a little bit over, I thought we had a good opportunity to ask questions, have conversations, have certain follow-ups. So I appreciate all the presenters yesterday for being so thoughtful in their presentation and for engaging us. Really, so our questions were really the product of a very engaging presentation. So thank you to everyone from yesterday. We basically have 2 presentations this morning. Dr. Baker, anything that you want to say to open us up today, or should we just jump right in?
Sure. Just thank you for your engagement yesterday and all of the good conversation. Today we'll transition from teaching and learning to 2 business items that are important to what happens for our students each and every day in their classrooms. So
Perfect. So let's begin with our facilities update.
Thank you so much, and good morning, members of the board, Superintendent Baker, executive staff, and of course our wonderful audience watching at home, including some of my facilities team who's really actively engaged in these projects, tuning in from the office right now. So thank you all for setting aside this time for us to provide this facilities update. I say us, this time I came solo, right? So Dr. Brown reminded me, last time around I presented with a student from Wilson High School who did a stand-up job. This time I'm flying solo. So first and foremost, with respect to our agenda for this morning, it might look a little deceiving because there's 5 line items here, but really it's a 3-part presentation. So I'll start off with more of a program project type overview. I'll jump into more of a facility related update, facility master plan update. There's items listed there, furniture and sustainability components, but those are really sub-bullets in a sense off of the facility master plan effort as well. And then I'll close off with a surplus property update. That's an item we've been discussing off and on for the better part of a year or so. So I want to share some information with respect to where we've been and of course next steps. You will definitely see a theme across this presentation though. So with every one of these projects, you're going to hear me use words like outreach and engagement quite a bit because that's where we are on every one of these line items, right? So I'll dig deeper as we go into the presentation, but definitely look out for that or take notice of that. So in terms of our project and program update, traditionally I share progress pictures, construction images, and just share highlights with respect to certain projects and where they are in the process. But we did that just a few months back. So those projects continue to progress and go at a healthy pace. Things are good in terms of the construction perspective and the activities that are taking place out on the field. So I really wanted to focus more energies this morning on some other project and program related impacts or potential impacts, and of course what we're doing to mitigate those impacts. So the first slide or the next slide you see here really starts to highlight some of those potential impacts. Off on your left, and you may have been curious about some of these questions as well, just as you follow the media or the news, with respect to conversation on construction material cost increases, supply chain issues, labor shortages. Every one of those on that left side of the column, of course, come with a higher price tag, right? And we're not immune to that. So there are definitely issues that we're keeping an eye on and we continue to monitor from our facility side of the house, sometimes directly, sometimes with the assistance and input and dialogue of consultants within our program as well. What we've seen to date is for several projects that we have under construction and we've had under construction, not much of an impact because in every one of those cases we're officially under contract. We have contract language protecting us from those type of cost increases, and we do a lot of work via leaseback delivery methods. With those delivery methods, those contracts come with guaranteed project cost. So we're really in a good position in terms of work that has been done to date. I've heard from several districts and my counterparts out there asking those very questions. Have we been hit or have we been posed with questions with respect to increases? And for us, we've been in good shape to date. That said, there are a number of bid openings that are coming down the pipeline. There's a few projects that we bid just recently. One of them is our subcontractor bids we recently compiled for the Avalon project, which is scheduled to start in January. The other one is actually a project that we put on the shelf last year, and that's the HVAC and modernization work for the Lakewood Gym. We recently rebid that project. We got a couple bids, so there was definitely bidder interest, yet we saw an uptick in price. So we are starting to see some of those impacts with projects that we put on the street for bid openings going forward. There's definitely cost increases out there in certain areas in particular. So lumber and steel, really domestic imports, or global imports, I should say, not domestic, but also aluminum. And that's a good example for me. So with aluminum alone on projects, a 40% increase in price versus this time last year. And that's rather large. So of course, with our program and a program our size, we account for contingencies within projects. We really expect cost escalation to a certain degree, and the industry norm for us in construction, generally about a 2 to 3% increase from year to year. So we budget accordingly per that. What we've seen recently is really double that amount. So we're going to continue to pay attention and monitor those situations, really look at things from a budget perspective per project, and make adjustments accordingly. In many respects, because of our program contingencies and project contingencies, I think we'll be able to weather the storm and be in good shape. In other cases, if we project and we hear from our consultants and design professionals that the trend might be here for a longer stretch of time, perhaps we make other adjustments. And I'll give you an example. If we see that, say we have a new construction effort and we're building another facility from the ground up, and that may have been designed to be built up with steel, right? Perhaps we look at more of a wood frame building instead, if we see a trend heading in that direction and to our benefit. So again, these are just factors we'll continue to monitor and pay attention to and make adjustments to accordingly. What we're seeing in terms of inflation is really the highest sustained increase in over 13 years. So it's been here for a stretch of time. We're definitely feeling the impact and may feel the impact via our projects. And I'll continue to keep the board abreast of those specific changes and impacts in our world. Now, of course, the column on the right, and there's just a few bullet points there, those really list things we're trying to do on our side of the house. Not trying, we are doing these things to mitigate the impact. So we really stood to benefit, or we benefited by construction acceleration over the past year and a half or so. There were several projects that were complex in nature, older facilities that we were renovating where we encountered unforeseen conditions. Because we were able to accelerate construction schedules, we really didn't see an overall impact to construction end dates. That really helped us, and I think it helped our bottom line on a budget perspective. You know, had this been more of a traditional year per se, we could have been faced with additional fees coming back from contractors and construction management firms and other program consultants. But really what we saw was we were able to weather that storm and just get projects done within the original allotted timelines. That really helped. In terms of economy of scale, we're just doing a much better job these days in terms of marrying up some efforts across departments. So I list maintenance, but there's plenty of other departments in the district where we're working in collaboration and just working on project efforts together. Again, just to better package projects, to make projects more attractive for bidders, and we see a savings as a result. So as an example, actually I could list one or two. So Avalon jumps to mind. That's a project we're going to start again this coming January. But we worked very closely with our nutrition services branch in terms of doing some work in the kitchen and cafeteria to expand those spaces and include that work and that effort as part of this one bid. We see some economies of scale there. We definitely see some bidder savings by packaging things into more of an attractive, sometimes larger project as well. And then I list the aquatic centers just because I didn't want to forget to note this one. This is another one of these scenarios that just kind of screams out as an opportunity for savings. So we have the pool, the new aquatic center over at Wilson High School that's currently in the design stage, scheduled to break ground next summer. But then we have additional pool and aquatic center complexes at the other comprehensive high schools that will follow within a year and a half of one another. So Lakewood will follow, that's now officially in design. Jordan will come next. Then we have some work to do over at Milliken and Poly. What we're looking at from a contracts perspective is how do we leverage our situation, right? We have not just one pool. Eventually, we're going to design and build 5 of them. So how do we leverage some contractual language with our pool consultants, our designers, perhaps even the vendor that supplies the pool, I call it the shell or the tub itself. We project quite a bit in terms of savings there, hundreds of thousands, perhaps even in the 7-figure range when we look at all 5 of those complexes put together. So just wanted to note that we're being creative. We're definitely looking at things to mitigate the potential cost impacts.
David, can I add something?
Please.
And something that we're continuously mindful of is our reputation as a customer in the field. So do we have a high quality professional staff that it will be interfacing with our contractors? Do we pay our bills on time? Those little things really matter to attract firms to bid on our, and of course, the more bidders possible, the better our pricing becomes. So it's really important for us to really uphold our reputation in the field as a good customer.
It's a great point, Yumi. Next up, just a very brief update with respect to our community workforce development agreement. Please, Dr.
David,
Benitez.
before you move
Yes.
on, can I ask a question about our the points that you raised around unanticipated increases in costs?
Please.
So I think because much of our work is based on projects funded by our bonds, right? Can you talk a little bit more, David, and this is a conversation we probably had with Alan 2 or 3 years ago around when in our business items we get things, there are budget modifications, right, that come along with, you know, a project that may have been an anticipated cost of X amount, you know, it has increased by 15, 20% due to the things that you illustrate right here, whether it's labor costs, materials costs, meaning long-term original projects that we may have thought of that costed X amount of money that could be funded with the bond, then have longer-term implications, whether we complete the projects on time or not. All right, the fact of the matter is, I know you're trying to be sensitive to this, David, but it doesn't look anytime soon like material costs are gonna go down, all right, or flatten out. All right, in terms of labor shortages in key areas, that's a longer term, but in the next couple of years, nationwide, we're experiencing labor shortages, right, in very specific sectors. So can you talk a little bit more, David, and you made reference to one project, to how important it is to do 2 things. One is to mitigate, right, those efforts, either by doing things on schedule or ahead of schedule, and or projecting out, right? Because fact of the matter is we have a finite fund from the bonds that are meant to fund projects that, quite frankly, if those projects don't get done on time, costs, labor, all kinds of things will become more difficult to mitigate, right? The further back we push back things. So I think it's important to note that, because sometimes in our budgets, we see budget modification come back to us, budget modification come back to us, and the increases in some cases are substantial, right? And so that then takes away from our ability to do other projects, right? Because we have a finite pot. So talk to us a little bit more about that, David, because it is important, not just in terms of what the public is seeing in terms of what's getting done, but the pot of money hasn't changed that we're doing these projects with.
You're right on. And with respect to the large-scale pot of money, the overall building program, but also from year to year on a cash flow perspective, right? So every one of these bonds are not sold all at once. They're sold in series, in issuances, correct? And we have projects stacked up on a year-to-year basis or phase-to-phase basis as well. Accordingly, we staff up that way, right? So we have project managers and construction managers and design professionals and so forth, all under agreements to do this work per these phases, right? So there's quite a bit of moving parts, and it's really very complex at the end of the day. A couple other examples just jump to mind just that I can speak to in response. So Lakewood High School that I just mentioned, right? So Lakewood's gym was up for bid right when COVID started last year. And that project, if the board recalls, I actually came before the board right around that time and said, look, we're gonna put this one on the shelf. We don't have bidder interest. It's likely due in part to the uncertainty with COVID. So we decided, let's put that one on the shelf. That there wasn't much in terms of time sensitivity pushing us to do that one at that point in time. Now that we've put that one back on the street for bids, and we collected bids, and we saw that we're in fact over budget, right? There was quite a bit of work and conversation that happened behind the scenes. And that's the part that doesn't show up in the board action, right? To your point. So we had quite a bit of dialogue and back and forth, and brought in a number of our professional services folks and consultants, and of course dialogued with other folks on my team, including Alan, in an attempt to make a decision on, do we move forward? Is that bid the true and correct bid for this work that's going to be done? What happens if we don't accept this bid and we rebid this project a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, and now we're paying quite a bit more in terms of cost escalation and inflation? Because to your point, we don't see an end in sight relatively soon with respect to material cost increases or this labor shortage issue, right? So all of those factors we weighed, and we weigh them quite a bit, right, before even coming to board with a recommendation to proceed with a construction services agreement. So that's part of the response, right? The other part is really, and to Yumi's point and credit with respect to her add in there, there's so much work we do on our side of the house to attract bidders and pay our consultants timely, right? The outreach we do contractor outreach fairs, and we continue to do so and did so even during COVID, right? We created a virtual contractor outreach fair. The more bidders we bring in and the more interest we keep on our program, the more we're going to see multiple bids, the more we're going to get good quality contractors who want to do continued work on our program, because our program is attractive, right? So I think we're going to continue to see the benefits in that respect as well.
Thank you, David.
Sure thing.
Hey, David, do you mind if I chime in as
Please,
well?
please.
I'm always kind of weirded out about this workshop structure here and interrupting you in the middle of the presentation. But I did have a question that came up with one of the things that you brought up in regards to, you were talking about some of the potential changes that would come with some of the projects in regards to maybe a change of material or changing amenities to a project to try and keep it under budget. The one thing that I have a little bit of concern about, and I just wanted to make sure that this isn't being compromised, is sustainability and making sure that our buildings are still LEED certified, or trying to make sure that they're LEED certified to some component. Can you speak a little bit to the LEED certification of some of our buildings, and for those that are unfamiliar with LEED certification, sharing a little bit about that as well?
Sure thing. So sustainability is important. It always has been, continues to be at the forefront of our discussions. And more so, or perhaps of equal importance, just good quality workmanship, right? So every one of the buildings we design and built, we're building to last over a long stretch of time. We have to comply with building codes and mandates from the state and from the federal level. But really, just as good stewards of public funds, we want to build and develop facilities that are going to last us 50, 60, 75 plus years, correct? So in doing so, even as we entertain potential different building materials or different design approaches, we're ensuring that we're also not skirting the process or shortchanging ourselves as a district or shortchanging our community, for that matter, in terms of the lifespan of that building. What we've seen just in our work from year to year with respect to sustainability and LEED efforts is that world has also evolved, right? So it's been around, there's been lessons learned, there's a lot more consultants working in that arena as well, and contractors as well. And what we've seen is things and elements that we design into buildings that used to cost us a little extra money. In some cases these days, they don't cost much more, right? So we can incorporate quite a few sustainability related elements into our design efforts, and we see an immediate payback, right? Or we see savings in some cases right off the gate as we're designing and building as well. So we're going to continue to do so and proceed with those efforts and designing those type of efforts into every one of our new construction facilities.
Got it. And just for confirmation, for as my man would say, millions of viewers watching today, we're not sacrificing the sustainability efforts of our buildings due to cost in no way, shape, or form.
Not at all. If anything, we're
Okay.
incorporating more sustainability efforts going forward.
All right. Thank you.
Great question. So our community workforce development agreement, of course, we signed off and entered into this agreement with the Orange County and Los Angeles Building Trades Councils. We developed a number of metrics and really benefits for the districts and our students and our contractors in the local community. We also set forth a local hire goal that was really twice, right? So we doubled our local hire goal as a district. So historically, really the last 3 years or so, perhaps 4 years now, we've targeted this 20% local hire metric, and we've hovered right around that range. Sometimes we go slightly above the 20%, sometimes we just go a tick below it, but we've really hovered around that range for a good stretch of time, and we're doing a good job in that respect. With the CWDA project list, and that there's 15 projects on that list that total over $400 million, we just started construction on the first one. So we had a groundbreaking ceremony over at Jordan High School just a few months back. We've since started construction. There's quite a bit of work going on with respect to demolition and some of the underground trenching and earthwork that happens before we actually, build up, in a sense. And grant you, it's only been a short stretch of time. We had our first reporting cycle, and we were at 48% for local hire on that one project, right? So it's early in the process. We're going to continue to report back to the board on how we're doing, how we stack up on the CWDA projects as compared to the non-CWDA projects as well, just to show that comparison. But we're really happy with where we are, especially when you consider what I just described in the slide previously, labor shortages. Mm-hmm. So here we're short on labor, yet we're still doing great in terms of our metric and goal for local hire.
And David, one more question here. With our local hire, we had 2 tiers? Can you remind me?
3 tiers.
Okay.
Each one of those tiers describes and really depicts different zip codes.
Correct.
Right? So we're very specific in that respect.
Right. And so that, once again, for the millions of viewers, it was, one tier was like 10-mile radius, another one was zip codes in the surrounding areas, and then tier 3 was?
Tier 3 is a little more open
right,
in terms of Los Angeles and Orange counties.
Right. And so what I would be interested in seeing is a breakdown of workforce within those 3 tiers. I think that would be helpful for us to just get confirmation of how local is our local hire.
That's a great point. Are we hitting tier 1? Are we hitting mostly tier 2, right? So, point taken. Next one up, just a very brief update with respect to community meetings that we've been having for projects. So this has kept me and the staff really busy these days. As we embark on projects and right before we break ground, we like to go out to the community and the staff, our project neighbors and whatnot, just to share information on these projects. What does the project entail? What does the project not entail? Who do you contact with specific questions? We generally provide a program type update, so we share with the community what Measure E is all about, and then we drill down into specifics on each respective project. Of course, we really put ourselves out there for the Q&A portion, right? We want to field questions, and the more questions we field from our community, we feel the more successful the projects are going to be as well. Really kudos to our media services department and our translators, because they're with us in lockstep on every one of those sessions and just do a great job as well, right? Just in terms of being out there and putting ourselves out there to these communities. And last in that section, we've had good turnouts of late. So, we've gone to this virtual format instead of the traditional in-person format. What we've seen is larger turnouts accordingly across every one of those community sessions. So I think we'll look for a way to continue that trend going forward as well.
And before you go, this is you mentioned media services doing a great job. This is a plug to subscribe to the LBUSD YouTube channel, because you get those alerts. So I got all those alerts. I'm like, oh, there's more program updates, more at all of the schools. And if it's not your school and you don't want to watch, you just swipe away that alert. But it does remind you if that was something that you were thinking you wanted to do. It's a great way. So please subscribe.
Perfect. So switching gears, going over to our facility master plan, and as you know and you're aware, I'm likely going to keep speaking to this subtopic here as part of every board workshop, because it's a big effort, right? So it's a massive undertaking. It's something that's really going to help us, not just as a facility department, but as an overall district with respect to where we're headed and how we connect those dots from the educational vision and mission to what we in fact have on the facility side of the house. Where we are to date is we've done quite a bit of work with respect to the needs assessment walkthroughs. So the actual consultants walking every one of our school facilities, every building, just taking note and documenting need and potential lifespans of certain building components. So really taking stock of what we have. In In terms of the overall timeline, we're still very much in line with completing this master plan effort by, I'd say, late spring, perhaps even June or so. So we're very much on target to do that. A little bit of background information and just some more information for context, really. The why. So why are we doing this? So you've often heard me describe the facility master plan as a roadmap, right? It's supposed to give us direction in terms of where we want to head from a facility standpoint, where we want to put our dollars in terms of capital improvement efforts. And it's really driven by data for the most part. So in us taking stock and our consultant and architect and engineers taking stock, they're able to really assess our, again, lifespan of certain building components, which is data, but also current enrollment trends, current capacity at certain school sites, identifying if there's in fact available space that can scream opportunity in a different way at the school site level, right? So all of those are just data-driven metrics that are going to help us get to where we want to get. Now, of course, alignment is a big component here as well. So, on the facility side of the house, we're embarking on a number of improvements, a lot of HVAC work, a lot of modernization work, some athletic-based projects and other projects across the board. Yet in terms of next steps and where we want to head, because this is in fact a long-range master plan, right? That should cover at least the next decade or so. Where do we want to go? So having conversations that center on what the educational vision and mission is for the district, what our focus in and tie-in is in terms of our excellence and equity initiative, right? Every one of those items are talking points that we discuss over and over with the project team and with the various stakeholders that we're bringing into this discussion as well. In a sense, we're basically looking at developing the roadmap and what facilities will look like or should look like going forward into this next decade or so. So that's only achievable by us reaching out to stakeholders, getting all the right folks in the room, getting our educators in the room as well, so we can hear their feedback and thoughts. I often find, and just in terms of the last bullet point here as well, and I'll dig deeper into it in the slides that follow, these master plans only work when we get significant amount of feedback and input, and from different parts of the community and different stakeholders, right? So we're really going to engage in this extensive outreach effort to have folks chiming in on where we're going next. So here's a slide that depicts some of our outreach efforts and engagement efforts. There's a number of committees that we're forming just to work on this facility master plan. So at one level, we have what we call the Executive Steering Committee. That's for the most part a lot of us that are in this room. It also includes Alan Rising, who works with me on the facility side of the house, and Canon Design, who's our project architect. So at this level, we talk very high-level things. We help formulate the agendas for the other sessions that take place. But of course, we want that input and feedback from this particular group in terms of where we want to head from a facility standpoint. We also have a recently formed district planning committee. This one includes a number of different directors and so forth from the various different departments in the district. So at the leadership level, what are our counterparts? What do the other district directors feel we should incorporate into this plan? At a recent meeting, we had an exercise where we talked visioning and principles just to lay out where we're headed and to tee up the next batch of sessions that are going to take place as well. That group is really geared towards representing all students and all stakeholders in the district. So of course, we want that input and participation from the level offices, from the special ed side of the house, from all the business services units as well, just to make sure nobody's left off of the table. One of the larger ones that we're working on forming is this Stakeholder Advisory Committee. So working closely with a number of folks, including our communication office and our outreach office, in terms of attempting to tap into some existing committees as well. We know folks are very taxed for time these days, and there's quite a bit going on. So we're looking at leveraging some of the groups we have already in place and perhaps forming like offshoots of those committees as well in the development of this stakeholder advisory group. This is often a larger group that includes students and teachers and parents and just other community members. And it's our opportunity to get that external feedback as well. So not just us looking through our district lens, but what's the general and greater community thinking in terms of capital improvements. And then, of course, community forums. These will take place in 2022. So we envision one in perhaps January or February, one a little later. But But once we continue to dialogue with our committees and continue to engage in these master plan efforts, we'll be ready to go out there at a larger scale. It's yet to be determined how we go about doing that, whether it's in person or virtual, but we'll dialogue there and make sure we outreach at a much larger scale to get additional feedback. What will likely result from these sessions is just us putting everything and documenting everything, right? And by everything, I mean, all of our interests, all of our dreams, all of our desires from a facility standpoint, perhaps even having some dialogue around competing interest, ultimately having discussion and dialogue, though, on priorities, right? That we're often limited in terms of dollars available as compared to the need, so we'll have definite dialogue on recommendations and priorities for all these facility improvements. Here's just a graphical depiction of our process and timeline, and apologies, Dr. Benitez, I have some colors included on this slide, but we also added in a few things for you for point of reference, right? So for one, we added in the date ranges there, or the months that you see. So I wanted to make sure I identified via timeline the specific months where these engagement efforts will take place. And even just at a quick glance, you can likely take note of where there's one circle versus 2 or 3. That just means some of these activities are going to overlap and go parallel as well. So again, quite a bit of engagement, a lot of information that's going to be shared, but really sorely needed and necessary for us to develop this comprehensive plan. So some of the components of the facility master plan, really two of the larger ones, one being furniture, the other being sustainability. So I want to spend a little bit of time just describing those and depicting who we're tapping into via these committees. So with the furniture component, there's quite a bit of work we've done to date, behind the scenes, with staff reaching out to vendors and suppliers, looking into potential contract mechanisms. But recently, really at the last board meeting, the board took action to amend Canon Design's agreement on the master plan, specifically adding in the furniture and sustainability components into their scope of work. And that's going to help us because we're really looking at bringing them in as a professional services firm to help quarterback these efforts, both of those efforts. On one hand, as our facility master plan architect, they're now well-versed in our district and really understand and comprehend our school sites and our needs. But on the other, they've done this type of work for several other clients, not just across the state, but across the nation as well. So they bring a good, unique perspective in terms of what other client districts are doing and really can just kind of be an unbiased party in the room as well in terms of quarterbacking the efforts. Just walking through the timeline, what we see here is a timeline that takes us from right about now until June. So really what we're going to be working on the front end is, of course, the development of ideas and concepts. We're going to continue to research potential vendors and suppliers. We're having dialogue with these vendors and suppliers with respect to supply chain issues as well, and just availability of goods, because that's a potential impact as we make a purchase. We're going to engage in quite a bit of engagement here, so bringing in teachers, bringing in students to really chime in with respect to what works and what doesn't work in a current classroom environment from a furniture perspective. Are we looking at developing more of a blank canvas or a blank slate where we have ultimate flexibility in a room? Are there certain chairs and desk type systems that we like, right? So we can continue to go down that path potentially as well. Also, they may chime in on things they've seen elsewhere. So we want to make sure we get all those ideas on the table first and foremost. What we'll look to develop as we hit the later part of the year is actual specifications and standards, so we can make some recommendations in that respect. And that may, just as an example, perhaps we have a standard or a menu list of options for elementary schools versus secondary schools. So we're really looking at these stakeholder groups and various folks who are part of this process to help us develop these draft standards as well. With respect to January, what you see there are site-specific designs and inventories, really continuing to take stock and identify what our master list will look like. So we know how many classrooms are out there in the district. We know our enrollment versus capacity figures. We likely want to have some factor built into those numbers as well in terms of potential future rooms, right? So by school site, we want to have this comprehensive list that tells us this particular school needs this amount of classrooms furnished. perhaps again with a multiplier or factor to account for future space or future enrollment increases as well. Now, embedded in here, and one of the most cool parts I feel for this committee is we want them to really touch and feel the stuff, right? So we want them experimenting with the furniture. What we're looking at right now is 2 potential scenarios, and I'm really hopeful we can get both of them done. So on one hand, we're looking at some available classroom space or vacant space, probably somewhere central in the district, where we can outfit some of these rooms with some of the sample furniture from various different suppliers, and just have folks come to and from it and really see it and feel it and use some of that stuff. On the other hand, and perhaps even more exciting, we're looking at potentially identifying some pilot sites, pilot school sites, where perhaps we have the vendors bring the products in to 1 or 2 classrooms per se, cycle it through every week or so. So the students, the teacher, everyone in that particular room can actually use the products, right? And really give us their input after that use. So we're looking at those very things that would all be embedded within this timeline. I mentioned supply chain and those potential issues or concerns. Really what we're hearing from folks is we need to place that order by February if we're looking to stay to our June timeline of having the first installs completed. So that's what we're looking at. We're very much on target, a little aggressive, but I think we're in good shape. Just a slide here to show who we're tapping into. So a number of different folks, including our project architect who's quarterbacking the effort, but you also see a number of different business services units, a lot of folks who are involved in this process. With respect to furniture, and I'll just pick on a few of them to tell you what they're going to do in this process, right? So on the purchasing side of the house, we want some assistance and input with respect to how we contract. This will be a very large contract when we're all said and done and ready to go. Does it get broken up? Do we look at multiple different vendors perhaps? Do we leverage piggyback agreements from other school districts? Are things we're going to look at along the way? And then in terms of transportation and warehouse, a very critical component that I don't want to be forgotten as well. So as we get this new cool furniture that's really going to transform the classrooms, what's going to happen with the old stuff that transitions out? For one, we do not want it to just stack up and sit there for a good stretch of time or be visible to our communities, from the exterior of our buildings. But we also want to put it to good use, perhaps, right? So perhaps there's some public good component here as well in terms of what we can do with the surplusing of the furniture that comes out. We've described this one before, but of course we want feedback from the educators, from teachers, from students, and we want quite a bit of that. So they're going to be included as well. And then you see the last 2 there, special education, career tech, and science. There's specialty spaces out there, right? So I think we're going to be able to develop this standard for a traditional classroom, but we need some definite additional feedback just with respect to some of these specialty spaces. That they're unique in nature. Sometimes they include different casework in a classroom or peninsulas or whatnot. So we need to account for all those things along the way. Next up, sustainability. So I wanted to start here, and it's going to take a similar format here. I'm going to describe some of the things we've done and then finish off with a committee roster. But we've done quite a bit as a district to date, just in terms of paying close attention to sustainability and the importance in that respect. So most recently, we did quite a bit of work as a district with Prop 39 funds, which are geared towards energy-related savings and a Job Creations Act. So a lot of work in the form of solar carports and shade structures at a number of campuses, really 20 plus. A lot of work around lighting, right? LED lighting retrofits where we can do that, both interior and exterior spaces. Quite a bit of work with respect to controls. So having the ability to remotely control and access our energy data, turn systems on and off so that we don't get caught in a situation where as a district we're being inefficient, perhaps leaving a space conditioned when there's no activity taking place after hours. We also know that there's quite a bit of schools and quite a bit of energy surrounding recycling efforts over the last really 5+ years, I'll say, in particular. And then the district did a good job and board did a great job in terms of hiring the sustainability program specialist. So again, just a lot of energy around this effort, right? And last but not least, in terms of the bullet point here, participation and engagement to date. Alan's not here today, he's actually at a conference, but he's done quite a bit personally in terms of reaching out to a number of student groups and staff groups and communicating back and forth in terms of our next steps, communicating what we've done to date. but also ensuring and making sure that they know that there's additional outreach coming, right? And that really leads me to my next slide. So what we envision is really putting the foot on the gas in terms of the outreach and engagement with this particular component next. So
Foot on the electric vehicle, Mr.
exactly,
Miranda.
thank you.
Foot on the electric
Thank
vehicle.
you. How did I not catch that one? Thank you. So really going full force there, right? So connecting with folks, getting all the right folks in the room, getting the different interests just kind of out there before we make a determination on where we want to go next. So that's really the focus of our next batch of efforts. We're looking at a sustainability committee kickoff meeting to take place over the next couple weeks. Now that we've engaged in Canon Design and included that officially as their scope of work, we have them really on our bench to serve as that professional services consultant. They have a number of engineers who work in this specific area and field as well that are going to be able to bring instant credibility to this effort and again, speak to some of the things they're doing for other clients and other districts across the state and across the nation. What we want to do at the outset is really define and set goals and expectations. So with a number of these energy-related efforts and sustainability efforts, what we often find is terminology that's used, perhaps goals that are stated, sometimes misstated, right? So we want to make sure we gather around common language, really set and define the goals and expectations before we as a district determine where we want to go next and focus quite a bit of energy. What we envision is incorporation of this sustainability plan directly into our facility master plan. I envision an actual tab that's part of the facility master plan for a number of reasons, right? A number of these things and improvements we embark on will likely happen as a result of our capital improvement efforts, our modernization efforts, or new construction efforts, right? Those are all geared and stemming from our facility master plan. There's likely going to be conversation that centers around other things, though. Perhaps behavior modifications, perhaps efforts and energies outside of our facility side of the house. Perhaps transportation, operations-based, nutrition services-based as well. We'll make sure we capture those and either have them still incorporated into the master plan and or have another supporting document that really documents where we want to head next. With including these efforts and this ultimate game plan into our facility master plan, what that really gets us is, again, that roadmap. It really gives us that synergy and clearly defines where we want to head as a district and what we want to embark on. But the facility master plan also ties in the funding component, right? So how are we going to pay for these things? How do we achieve these things on a year-to-year or phase-to-phase basis? Now, in terms of our committee, you're going to see a number of the same players because a number of these are key stakeholders within our district and within our building program efforts. So you see our facility side of the house and operations side and transportation and so forth who were on the other committee as well. But then you see a number of new folks introduced here. So the maintenance side of the house and energy team, a key component, not just to speak to what we've done, but also to tie in what we envision going forward. Our sustainability specialists, who of course we want in the room and to be part of these dialogues, who will ultimately help us in implementation down the line and communication with our school sites and just educating folks. A number of students and teachers we want to introduce here. I specifically listed representatives from the Pauley Green Schools campaign, and I know they've now recruited and they have a number of participants from other schools just within that effort, which is great. And we want to continue outreach and efforts to other school sites within the district, right? So we want representation from every part of our district boundary, from perhaps elementary, middle, and high school levels as well, just to make sure everybody's lending their input in terms of what we envision. I listed City of Long Beach, CSEA, and Taube as well, just for representation purposes. Because there's likely going to be conversation that could impact the educational environment, the classroom setting, perhaps the education setting as well. So we want those players in that room to lend their input. And then this is the last section of our update on asset management and the surplus properties. So again, we've engaged in this dialogue for quite some time. Initially started with the formation of an asset management advisory committee. They developed a report and a recommendation that we brought before the board and the board approved or accepted, I should say. That entailed 7 properties across the district, but then we decided to just focus our energy around the 2 properties that are vacant. So these are the two properties that are pictured, just for point of reference. It's 999 Atlantic and 4310 Long Beach Boulevard. Again, both properties have been vacant for a good chunk of time, several years. It's a 2-story and a 3-story office type building respectively. And what we've seen is with both of these facilities, they really don't lend themselves well to service on an educational purpose, right? So it wouldn't help us. We'd almost have to demolish or do a substantial building effort to bring them up to par and up to code. And also what we've seen, just for point of reference, is ongoing expenses on our side of the house, right? From a maintenance perspective and security perspective, there's ongoing cost as we hang on to these two parcels. In terms of activities and next steps, and actually I'm going to take a step backwards. What have we done over the course of the last couple months? So the last time we updated the board, we were set to embark on this effort really per contract code and education code. We had to first offer the properties to a number of public agencies for either a 40 or 60-day period. So we sent a number of letters and correspondence to all the really representative agencies within our region. We worked closely with legal counsel to identify who those are, to make sure nobody was left off. And we really were active and intentional in terms of trying to outreach there. So we didn't just send a generic letter to like one department in the city per se. We reached out to 4 or 5 different departments within the city. Did a similar approach with the college districts and other agencies as well, just to make sure everybody really saw that these properties were out there. We had one of our team members walk a few of these agencies through the facilities, so there was a little bit of interest that was expressed from 2 agencies in particular. They weighed the pros and cons, probably went back to the drawing board, eventually approached us a while back and said they would no longer be pursuing the properties. So we've since finished that 60-day window and this public agency offering period. That's now complete, and we've complied in that respect. So in terms of what's next, again, working closely with legal counsel on every one of these bullet points you see next. So we're really looking at developing an RFP to seek out some broker help on these properties. So as we put the properties to market and again, really look to do good by our taxpayers and our community, and make sure the interest is out there, we really feel like we could use the help of a broker to help us market the properties. Next steps, and we've discussed some of these as well, but just again as a reminder, we're working with legal counsel on developing our actual waiver. There's a resolution that comes with the waiver that goes to the State Board of Education. We envision that being ready to bring to board on December 1st. So within the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks or so, we'll have all this documentation ready to present to the board for consideration for approval. So we do in fact want to proceed with the waiver. That would be our recommendation. Let's go to the state board and ask for us to not go through just more of a traditional next offering to the general public. Rather, let's develop the criteria we've discussed. Let's make sure we include that as part of this waiver effort as well. There's a public hearing component that's required as well. We can do both at the same board meeting, so we're preparing in that respect behind the scenes. And then, of course, just to tie in, and I briefly discussed this, our selection criteria. So we know there's interest. We've had some dialogue as well with respect to bid price and some public good component as well. We've had some dialogue in the office centered around, do we look at the price and the public good as more of a tiebreaker component? Do we factor in some sort of percentage built into that piece as well? We're continuing to work closely with legal counsel on refining that actual language, but you'll see it built into the actual waiver and the board resolution that we present in really just a few weeks. So, we can have dialogue there now. I can field some questions and answers on this or anything in the presentation. Or we can also dialogue further as we present those specific items in the next board meeting or 2.
So, colleagues, so my suggestion on the last point for Mr. Miranda would be, since we are going to be getting some more information specific to those items, that's specific to the properties, unless it's a quick question, that we pause on that and then open it up for discussion on any of the other items in the presentation. Okay.
Just a quick clarifying question. So the public hearing would be on the criteria that we're considering for the waiver?
Really a public hearing to take us into this next step of the process.
Okay.
So we would, in essence, share with the public that we've complied with the component for the public agency offering, and now we're transitioning into this next offering.
I just want to thank you for considering the sustainability aspect of the work. I was very happy to see our Poly Green School group listed in those who you will be working with. As you were talking about things, I thought, I wonder if that group in particular is part of the process, and I was real happy to see that they were. And also that you are planning on using the old furniture in some way, whether it's offering it to the public or, other entities. I like the idea of that furniture not going to waste, not going to a landfill. A lot of the furniture that we have was built decades ago and is still in good condition. I remember the furniture in our local elementary school library probably had been there for 50 years. It was in great condition. So I'm sure that this furniture can be put to good use, or at least a lot of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And there's a tie in there, right? So a sustainability component, if you will, to what we do with that furniture going forward.
We could just call it vintage and mark up the price and put it on auction.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, colleagues? On the whole thing, the only caveat I made was the properties.
Great. Thank you to the team for the update, and thank you, I'm forgetting the young man's name, for the picture that you put. He's one of our...
Isaiah.
Isaiah, he's one of our Lakewood High graduates who came out of the STAR program, which started at Jordan High School and then moved to Lakewood, which was a partnership between the Laborers Union and McCarthy Builders, and they came to us, 6-7 years ago to say we want to engage kids somehow. So to see him working on our school grounds is super cool.
It's great to see him, and that's an actual picture of him out there in front of a piece of equipment at Jordan High School, right? So he's hard at work on the demolition crew.
And just to address, I want to thank you for, as my colleague said, we know that the Green Schools Initiative students are really looking to engage with us in this work. And I want to thank you and Mr. Rising and the business department for making yourselves available for multiple meetings, for meeting with other districts alongside of them, our colleagues at the city as well. And so I wanted to lift that up as the things that are happening. And so just because there isn't a resolution in front of us, that there is work that has been continuing to happen probably for 6 or 7 months. I think I was on my first meeting that Alan was on in the spring via Zoom. So I just wanted to lift up that behind the scenes work that some folks might not know is happening. And I think what's really important, and when I was really honest with the students when I met with them last December, my experience on this board and in this district is that the boards have passed policy resolutions that are meaningful, that we are not a board that policy comes across our desk, looks good, let's vote on it, and all of a sudden it's policy, and then somewhere along the way we backtrack on it, or it becomes not as important as the next policy that comes along. That the equity policy is a great example of something that we're really actively engaged in working on. And so aside from those policies that are required for compliance purposes for ed code or federal things, that this board in my experience has been really intentional with the work around how policies are worded. And so bringing the students in on this piece, which I remember as a parent being involved in a facilities master plan, for 2010, the 10-year ago plan, that this plan is how the district looks at moving forward. And so this becomes the work that we do. And bringing a policy alongside that around sustainability seems really the most natural place for the work, because not only is it a policy that we talk about on the dais, it actually is embedded in the work and reflected in the plan that our professional teams have been a part of. So I want to thank you for bringing the students alongside that work for their learning as well as ours. So they have a lot to teach us, and we can show them ways in which the change that they are desperately calling for can be embedded in the work that we do, that isn't just a standalone resolution, that really is embedded in practice and commitment of resources as we move forward. So I want to thank you for including them and including their important calls for us to be better and better stewards of the environment for their sake into the way that districts get business done, so that it isn't just words on a page, but it really does incorporate into every meeting that your team will then go back and have, because it's part of the plan. It's not an extra thing on the side. It's embedded in the work. So thank you for being open to that and welcoming of that, and taking the time to lift up and explore seriously the asks that have come before us.
That's well said. And there's definite interest and passion with that group. We want them at the table, right? So just to add, we'll have official invitations going out to everybody on that committee within the next week or so.
Anything else, colleagues? Mr. Miranda, thank you. I would just add an additional comment building on Board Member Kerr. So irrespective of what the resolution or policy or whatever we end up, if we go that route, considering, I think one good thing, as both a show of good faith in these conversations, but also as Board Member Kerr eloquently stated, that it's embedded in the work, right? Would be on the sustainability aspect, since we had a few slides, Mr. Miranda, it would be good as we move forward with that aspect of the work to get a sense of what are our goals or targets, right, with respect to our impacts on the environment, all right? And that aligns with, again, with Ms. Kerr just said, because it is this sort of broad, sort of, then how do we, on what do we base whether our intentions, whether our work, our meeting, right, our own collaborative, community informed goals. And I would use our community workforce development agreement as an example, right? That we had a resolution, and as you started off the presentation saying, where now we've doubled our goals, right? Our resolution initially was 20% local hire, but because of that policy, we held ourselves accountable to some targets and some goals. So I would make that recommendation, right? That even though we're not voting, as Board Member said, on a policy or resolution today, that the considerations that are embedded in policies in terms of, like, whether it's our equity policy, right? That what are the outcomes, right, attached to that? So I would suggest and recommend, because I know that you're already with your team doing work on this, presenting us some goals, right? That then we can have a robust conversation around, okay, what would that look like if we are to go the route of a resolution of policy? And it does provide then concrete evidence for our community stakeholders that are pushing us in the right direction, in my opinion, to then actually show and demonstrate that we are indeed, that the work does have those elements embedded in us. Did that make sense, Mr.
Yeah,
Ryan?
that makes perfect
Okay.
sense. I could already envision a sustainability goals related presentation,
Yeah.
right, where we drill down into some specifics. Perhaps we can define and put off to the side some of the things we're already having to do based on current code compliance and new building code references that are going to be built in over the next couple of years. And then also identify some of these other sustainability components where we envision embarking on.
And it also addresses Mr. Miller's initial question, like, okay, just because we're mitigating costs doesn't mean that these things are not being done or cannot be done. Thank you.
Correct. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Miranda.
Thank you.
Mr. Otto? Yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, I've talked to the students, although not in depth, about the resolution that they're working on. But I've also talked to people at the aquarium about a teachable moment about these issues where there's a lot of sophistication about these things. And the kinds of questions that came back to me from people there were, so where do you get your energy from? Is it all Southern California Edison, or is it other places? And how do you feel about nuclear energy? That's clean energy, and a lot of people don't like that idea. But I mean, not because they're saying anything is good. They're just raising the good kinds of questions that would go into any of our consideration of a resolution with regard to this. And I've gotten written feedback from the former CEO at the aquarium, Jerry Schubel, about ways that this might be done, and he thinks that maybe we should get a student from each of the schools that are involved in this to to come together and do something. So I think what we're doing is responsibly considering this issue, and everybody is engaged with the ideas of sustainability these days, as we can tell from what's going on in Scotland right now. And so it's, we're not shying away from this. We just want to do it in a real responsible way. So that's it.
So, Mr. Otto, it sounds like the aquarium would be willing to sponsor and host a sustainability summit for our students. That's what I'm hearing.
On Mr. Otto's tab, I heard as well.
I don't drink Tab, but
Does that still exist, Mr. Otto?
it's been hard to plan it because it's been so busy, but it's still within our sight. So
Thank you, colleagues. Mr. Miranda, excellent.
Thank you.
great.
So next item on our agenda is a redistricting update. Ms. Takahashi, are you gonna lead
Yeah, I'll
us?
kick
Okay.
it off for us. So I'm joined by Justin Rich of Cooperative Strategies, Mr. James Suarez, and Justin Grayson to again talk with you about redistricting this morning. We will review the maps for you and the public again, as well as present some of the tools for the community to provide feedback on those maps, as well as provide a glimpse of some early feedback that we are getting from the public on the maps. So again, we're embarking on this redistricting process. It's a requirement that after every census, we analyze our maps for population balance and then make any necessary adjustments to the areas to achieve that balance. And again, redistricting is about Board of Education areas. It's designed for elections, and it does not change or influence school attendance boundaries. So this is the timeline of activities that we had set forth. This is our fourth discussion with you, the Board of Education, about redistricting. We deployed a community of interest survey, and this month we will be getting feedback from the community on the maps. So that we will spend this month in real efforts to get as much feedback as possible on the maps. And on December 1st, we will be making a recommendation for you for approval of a map. So at this time, I will hand it over to Mr. Justin Rich, who will review the maps with you again.
Good afternoon. Well, not even afternoon, good morning. Nice to see all of you. I'm Justin Rich with Cooperative Strategies. I'll introduce you to my colleague, Doug Mendy. He's really the GIS whiz behind all of this, so he's on hand to answer any questions. And Dr. Benitez, he's also a former college basketball player, so those Washington Park games, if you need a center, he may be able to. Just a thought.
It all depends on if he's available this Saturday.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Just that this has become a ritual now, just for a point of orientation, starting with the current district map, and just so we know where all of the various districts are. District 1 is in the northwestern part of the district, and then moving roughly counterclockwise, districts 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next slide. So we've included, as we have in the past, the breakdown both of the total population and the demographic composition for each of the districts. This is, again, based on 2020 census data, and you'll see those columns that have TP designated. That represents data from the census. That is every person counted within each one of those districts. And CVAP is the citizen voting age population as collected by the American Community Survey. I'll just point out a couple of the highlights. First of all, the 2020 census shows that the overall population of the district as a whole is nearly 519,000. Again, this is a simple math problem. When we look at 5 trustee areas, that's roughly 104,000 per each trustee area is the ideal size if we were to have those perfectly balanced, which is not really possible based on the population densities. The largest district is District 5, and the smallest district is District 3. The variance between those two, but between the smallest and the largest, puts us at 14%, which is why we're having these discussions about redrawing maps and bringing down that differential in order to comply with the law. What you'll see is there's a plurality of Latinx voters based on citizen voting age population in areas 1, 2, and 3. And this is similar to all of the map scenarios that I'm going to share with you. That doesn't change based on the adjustments that we've made. Next slide. So for scenario 1, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. So our task is this. Based on the fact that District 5 is the largest and District 3 is the smallest, what we need to do is to bring down that population in District 5, and then also bring up the population in District 3, or some combination of those two together in order to balance out. As I mentioned before, there is somewhat of a domino effect, and so because those districts aren't right next to each other, there are small changes that we have to make to other areas as well, and those are reflected in the scenarios that we have for you. I've shared this with you before, the various considerations that go into drawing voting areas. Those that we categorize as must-do include the balanced population requirement. This is in line with the one person, one vote constitutional doctrine. And also we have to draw these areas such that they comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And what that means is that we're not going to draw the lines such that it impairs the ability of a protected class to elect the candidate of their choice. So we pay close attention to citizen voting age population. That represents the estimates of eligible voters within each area to see what the effect is. And I'll be pointing that out as we go along. Now, the other things that we should do, because it represents keeping communities together, it represents keeping folks together so that they're better represented and they can speak with a single voice. Those include keeping areas as compact and contiguous as possible. Again, we have varying, different considerations that we're balancing. So to the extent that we can achieve that, that is important. Respecting communities of interest as much as possible. Again, just a refresher, these are defined as groups that have shared social and economic characteristics. And then what we often find is that the boundaries for those communities of interest are, whether they're man-made or geographical features, oftentimes those can be the dividing line, so it's important for us to pay attention to that as well. So we're not splitting neighborhoods or folks that may live right across the street from each other. And then we can't favor or discriminate against a political party or an incumbent. And then other local considerations as well. I know we've talked a little bit about the various schools that are in each trustee area or in each district, attendance boundaries, things like that. Oftentimes those are the types of considerations that K-12 districts will gravitate towards. So in the first scenario, I'll talk just a little bit about the demographics of this. First of all, this results in a variance of 6.0%. I will point out once again, based on citizen voting age population, that we have Latinx voting pluralities in areas 1, 2, and 3. The largest plurality here is District 1 at 43%, and the plurality in District 2 drops slightly to 41.3%. Just to highlight on the next slide the areas that have changed, we have our handy black arrows here to direct us towards those areas. Area 1, there was no change. In Area 2, there was territory added that includes the northwest portion of Signal Hill and the Willow Springs area. In Area 3, generally this is the area of Carroll Park and North Alamitos Beach. And then also in Area 4, the area of Los Altos South. There was already a portion within Area 4, and then there's the portion of Bellflower north of Stearns, east to the 405.
Justin, can you pause a moment? I
Certainly.
believe there's-
So Justin, I just want to make sure that we're following you. So as you're making references to pluralities of, like, let's say the Latinx population and our references to communities of interest, protected groups, one of the things that we highlighted at your last presentation is we don't have on the maps those references. So the maps just give us the population over 18, CVAP, and total population variances. I encouraged us last time to include that, all right? Because if we're asking our community members what you like about maps, but then they don't have data for one of the considerations on what we need to include in maps, I think that's very important, all right? So I don't know if I'm missing it. I don't see it on my maps. We didn't receive it at the last meeting. We did receive, and the board member could just showed me, in our original packets, the data, but I think we have to show that data on the different scenarios.
Yeah, we have, that data is posted with the maps online. So the public, when they see the maps, have these data sheets of the demographic breakdowns that we're talking about.
But is there not a way, 'cause, I mean, on these maps, you have the data right here, and on the first map, we have the data right behind the map. Is there not a way to embed that in the map or include it as part of the map versus having it on a different file?
I think there's just a I'm sorry.
Yeah, the map, and then all you have to do is scroll down, and you can see the corresponding data sheet with the maps online, so the public can view the map with the data sheet right there with it.
We don't, I don't have it on
Yeah,
my
you
end,
don't,
Justin, that's
yeah,
why.
you don't have it in the presentation, but we can provide that to you again.
Is there any way to,
Can we show the maps that are online, or Chris, can we show the maps online and show the corresponding data sheets
Sure. So,
with those maps?
Chris, if you could go to
thank you,
lbschools.net
Yumi.
/redistricting, and then we'll pull up one of the scenarios. We'll do this live. And Dr. Benitez, while we're sitting here, Doug, if I could introduce you. This is Doug, and I am also available to be your center if you need me. I have some skills in that area, but I'm a little height challenged in terms of, but I could do it.
Although in today's game, you might be the perfect.
Thank
So
you.
I just so that I'm being clear. So what I'm looking for here is the race, ethnicity subgroup.
Right.
Correct.
Data.
That-
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Yumi.
Yeah, can you show the map with the
Sure.
data
So
sheet
we're
attached to it?
we're looking at lbschools.net /redistricting. If you go and click continue down, Chris, and continue down, the maps. Well, wait a minute. Go. Scroll back up to the three maps, and if you click on one of the maps, not those maps, the ones above it. Nope. Yep. Click on one of those maps right there. So if you look at, this is conceptual trustee area scenario 1, and if you scroll down, there are the accompanying data.
That's what we're missing up here.
Yes,
that
that's
part.
So
yeah.
those are all online and live, for all three. Well, actually, all four maps.
So those are the sheets that we don't have physically.
I think we did distribute them at our last meeting, but yes, we can certainly get those to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I was looking for it, Justin. That's why I was like, can we pause? Because I thought I didn't get something.
So the numbers that I'm referencing, just in terms of those percentages, come directly from those data tables. I think it's hard to squeeze all of that information onto a single slide, so I think that was part of the rationale.
And that's perfect, right? Just the very first time, I believe they were on one side of the sheet was the map and the data was behind the map. So as long as it's there and available, I'm good with it.
All right.
Yeah,
So
it's
this
there.
is scenario one, and then second page there.
Yep, yep.
Are there any questions about map scenario one, or shall I continue on? Okay.
To confirm, these are the same scenarios we saw 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we scroll forward 2 slides? All right. So map scenario 2, the variance here is slightly higher. It's at 7.6%. I'll remind you this is still below the 10% threshold that is our target. Once again, we have Latinx voting pluralities based on citizen voting age population in districts 1, 2, and 3. I'll pause for a second. In those data sheets, there are 3 tables. The first table is the census data, and that's total population, every person counted. The second table is also based on census, but it's only 18 and over, so it gives you a snapshot of the adult population. The last table is the citizen voting age population. So just when you're navigating through that, you'll see all 3 of those tables for each and every one of the scenarios. The largest plurality still is District 1 at 43%. There's no changes from scenario 1 and 2 based on District 1, so that remains the same. There is a plurality in District 2 that drops slightly when compared to scenario 1, while it increases in District 3, and that's simply because there's some exchange of territory there. And just to highlight some of the major changes, again, the arrows are so helpful to be able to direct our attention to those areas. No changes in Area 1. In Area 2, the area that's added is the this is the entire Signal Hill and Willow Springs area. In Area 3, generally the territory that was added includes Wilmore and St. Mary's. In Area 4, Los Altos South and Stearns Park, there was already a portion within Area 4 there. And then Area 5 gives up that Los Altos South and Stearns Park portion. On scenario 3, this is the lowest of our 3 scenarios in terms of variance. It drops down to 4.1%. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, again, there are pluralities in districts 1, 2, and 3 for the Latinx citizen voting age population. In this particular scenario, District 1 increases to 44.7%, and this is the highest in any district in any one of the scenarios. District 2 is still lightly lower than the current areas, and District 3 is a bit higher at 36.3%, again, all based on citizen voting age population. So here we go. In terms of the areas that changed in Area 1, California Heights is taken and given to District 2. District 2 also adds the northwest portion of Signal Hill and Willow Springs. And then District 3, generally the portion of Wilmore, or a portion of Wilmore. Area 4, Los Altos South, and again, there was already a portion within that area. And no territory was added to Area 5. However, they do give up that Los Altos South portion. I know I've run through those quickly. Shall I pause there and focus on any particular areas and the details?
Any questions, colleagues, or additional thing that we can ask Justin for?
Yeah, I just had one thought here. I know we had 3 scenarios. The biggest issue was the fact that District 3 had the smallest amount of, or had the lowest of population, and the 2 districts that had the highest population were 4 and 5. I was surprised we didn't consider a scenario where District 3 would encompass all of Catalina Island. Was that something that was thought about?
It was. I'm trying to recall what the exact population was there. I think it's 4,000 or 5,000, I think. And so it didn't dramatically shift. The one concern there was just the effect that had in, in terms of the citizen voting age population and the Latinx percentage. And so, but certainly that is a scenario we can take a look at. But it does have a negative effect there when we include it in District 3.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Justin.
So good morning. Thanks, Justin. I'm going to be sharing the next couple of slides that represent the redistricting web page. So the web page was created to give the most updated information about the redistricting process, and it hosts all the resources in one place, lbschools.net/redistricting. And you're probably going to be hearing me say that quite a bit, so if you're keeping score, it'll probably be either 6 or 7 times. This web page contains all the presentations to this board, beginning with our first presentation in September, as well as the current LBUSD board area map, and a frequently asked questions document that is periodically updated to reflect questions that have been raised about this process. We do recognize that in any format, a map is difficult to read. It's too small. It's too crowded. There's not enough information. But the community needs to be able to compare the draft maps with the current areas. We recognize that. So we're pleased to give you a comparative map created by Darren, our LBUSD webmaster. This comparative map is located at lbschools.net/redistricting and uses overlay comparison technology that allows users to see the differences between the maps. Using this, the screenshot in the slide represents the comparative map, and I see it's already on live, so Chris Itzen, thank you for that. By rolling over each of the buttons, current areas and scenarios 1, 2, and 3, the map will automatically change to your selection, thus giving the user the comparison from the map that was previously selected. Using this resource, a user can click on the current area button and then roll to the scenario of choice. The color change in an area of the map represents a proposed change of board area. So Chris, we're going to do this live. So you took us to lbschools.net/redistricting. Next, scroll down to the comparison of the map section, which I see is there. So Chris, please use your mouse to roll over the current area button. The map that appears right now, live, represents the current Board of Education areas, 5 of them. Now, Chris, move your mouse to scenario 1. The map that now appears is the scenario 1 map, which is one of 3 options for redistricting change. So, Chris, I'd like you to roll over current areas button and scenario 1, and please keep doing that. So what you're going to see here, we're going to use this as an example. You'll notice the color change, and then when he continues to roll between current and scenario 1, notice the area south of Wardlow, north of Willow, in the Willow Springs neighborhood. The change from blue to yellow represents a change in board representation for that area, from blue, currently board area 4, to yellow, board area 2. That's for the scenario 1 map. So as you can see, if you look at it carefully, this right kind of towards the center of the map, as Chris is going from current area to scenario 1 area, you'll see that change. And that is consistent with the arrows that you saw in the previous presentation. So this can be done for each of the map scenarios, comparing the options to the current areas, and even comparing each scenario map with each other. So we highly encourage the community to use the comparison of maps at lbschools.net/redistricting to compare the maps and see those changes live. So Chris, can you go back to our presentation, please? Thank you for the live scenario. How can I get involved? We are asking the community to do 3 things to help the process and lend their voice. Number 1, get the latest information about LBUSD's redistricting process at lbschools.net/redistricting. As shown in the live demonstration, number 2, use the comparison maps to review and compare the proposed changes. And finally, voice your opinion about the draft maps, scenarios 1, 2, and 3. As you can see in the presentation, this is a screenshot of lbschools.net/redistricting. It shows 2 red buttons. Your input is needed y su opinión es necesaria. Click on a button to give your opinion about these maps. Next slide, please. Using the Your Input is Needed button, you'll be taken to a form which asks 2 key questions about each of the draft maps. What do you like about the map? And what can be improved? This feedback from the community will help inform you, the Board of Education, about the map scenarios and give insights from neighborhoods and considerations for each map. Currently, we have 84 responses, but we're definitely looking for more. Next slide, please. So speaking of the current responses, here are some of the early feedback trends. As you can see, 4 things kept popping up. Keep Signal Hill together. Keep Cal Heights, Los Cerritos, and Bixby Knolls together. 405 is a natural boundary. And try and keep neighborhoods together. Again, we've launched this for about a week-ish, so we're asking for more feedback so we can come back and talk more about trends. In addition, clarification is needed in response to some of the recent feedback. So, there is some confusion about the size of areas. But please remember, redistricting is strictly population-based. So the geographic size of an area is not the focus. Each of the scenarios is compliant with respect to population balance. Clarification number 2. Some folks who responded are served by another public school district and expressed a desire to become a part of LBUSD. Unfortunately, this is not a part of the redistricting mapping process. That said, enrollment into LBUSD is an option using the interdistrict permit process. Number 3, and I want to be very clear about this. Redistricting process will not change any school attendance boundaries. The home schools for students currently will not change with any of these maps. Redistricting is solely about Board of Education areas for elections for board representation. Redistricting will not change school attendance boundaries. And there is some momentum about matching the city council districts. However, that is not possible because of 2 factors. 1, the city council has 9 districts and Long Beach Unified has 5. And 2, Long Beach Unified School District serves multiple cities, including Long Beach, Lakewood, Avalon, and Signal Hill. With that, let me plug one more time where we are asking folks to go. lbschools.net/redistricting. So now I'm going to turn it over to Justin Grayson, who will let you know about community engagement and plans for more. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for that thorough explanation. And I think I got 6 times, and I think what we all know is that it takes 7 times for things to become habit. So let's say it one more time. lbschools.net/redistricting. Okay, there we go. So we're on slide 19, page 19, and what I want to do is quickly just talk about what our community engagement activities have been around redistricting. As we know, this is really important not only for the board, for our district, but for the members of our community to really know and be informed in what's happening when it comes to these maps, what changes are happening with the maps, and it really affects them and their child's education. So we've been doing a lot of community engagement. And real quick, just to go back a second on the website, the map comparisons that James did a great job explaining. That's just part of our efforts to really make things a lot easier to digest for the community. We understand that redistricting is something that is pretty complex, and we're trying to do as much as we possibly can to make things easily digestible for anyone to be able to really see and understand what's happening. So that was just an idea that the team came up with to make those maps easier to kind of compare what's happening between the 3. One thing that we're also working on in real time as we speak is an interactive FAQ for that page as well, where all you have to do is kind of click on the link and it will kind of accordion down and show you all the information. So we just want, again, for people to be able to not have to click around and search for things, but for things to be really easily accessible on lbschools.net/redistricting. So jumping ahead, coming up in about 5 days, and then another one about 12 days from now, we've got 2 community meetings that will be hosted on Zoom. Those are community meetings that are just going to be, again, explaining all of the things that are going on when it comes to redistricting, trying to get the community to be more informed, to make informed decisions, and to provide their feedback. So the first one will be held on Monday, November 8th at 6 p.m. The second will be on November 15th at 6 p.m., and they're both going to be Zoom meetings. We've got district committee presentations coming up. You can see the list here of all the different community groups that we'll be presenting to. And again, that's just an effort to make sure that our community groups are informed so that they can then kind of cascade our message to the folks that they directly impact. We're proud that James was actually able to join one of our community groups over the weekend on Saturday. There was what was it? Was it a health fair? A community health fair held at Lincoln. And James was there, and he brought some redistricting flyers and was able to just talk directly one-on-one to some families in the neighborhood. So we thought that was great. Thank you, James, for being there. Let's skip to the next slide. This is just another list of some things that we've been doing, and I'll just quickly slide through these different bullet points here to talk about what we've been doing. So flyers to community partners. We've developed this flyer that you'll actually see on the next slide. Can you just jump forward really, just one, go back one? There we go. So this is the Share Your Input flyer. Again, at the top, just some very basic information about what redistricting is. Some pictures of the map, but more importantly, the link to lbschools.net/redistricting. And this QR code that you'll see plastered everywhere, which allows everyone, and if you are watching, to all, 1.4 million of you that are watching right now, all you need to do is take your phone, you just go to the camera app. You don't have to have a specific QR code reader. We're in 2021, they've changed it, so now all you have to do is use your camera, point your camera at the QR code, and it should pop up a link to go directly to that page. And that will take you directly to the survey so that we can get that feedback. This flyer here, we've added a couple things to it, a few links and kind of just notifications for when our community meetings are, as well as a link that says we're looking for everyone's feedback by November 19th. We want to make sure that we can get everyone's feedback and then process it before that board vote. So there's a community flyer. I just mentioned the community events participation and that we've already done. There's been a lot of it, but we're also looking forward to working with our community groups and finding out what's happening in the next few weeks so that we can send these flyers out to those community groups, have them share our messages, use our videos and all those different things. And we're working with our community partners to find out which events that we can partner with them on. Mailers, this one is fairly new. We're excited. Chris, can you go forward, I believe, 2 slides? Thank you. So this is after the last board meeting, and just in conversation with members of the board, we hear you when you say that we want everyone in our community to understand what's happening, not just the folks that are close to those boundaries that may change, but we really do want to inform everyone in Long Beach of the changes that could happen with the maps. So what we've decided to do is to send out a mailer. It says, we want to hear from you. It basically just is a call to action to everyone that says, you know, your input is necessary. Here's the QR code, go to this link and be able to provide feedback about the proposed changes to the district maps. This is going to go out to every household that we have in the district, and they're going to start being mailed out this week. Go back 2 slides, please. Thank you. And then just moving forward, a school messenger. So again, just for the sake of getting everyone to see and to know what's happening, we're going to send out a school messenger email to all families with this information, with these flyers, and with a link to the video and to our website. And lastly, we've got a video that you may have seen, but this video is part of MMS's Explainer video series. That series is a series of short videos that might be animations, illustrations, or just really easily understood or easily digestible language to explain difficult topics. And this is one of them that we created, so I believe we're going to just show it really quickly to see what we've done in terms of the redistricting explainer video.
Did you know that due to the 2020 census, LBUSD is currently going through a redistricting process? Redistricting means we make sure there's a population balance for each of the Board of Education areas. Board areas must be made as equal in population as possible so that communities have equal access to political representation. This process won't change your school attendance boundaries, but does matter for Board of Education elections. This includes the June 7th, 2022 primary elections. Community input is critical to creating a map that provides fair and effective representation for all citizens of the district. You can learn more at lbschools.net/redistricting. Please fill out the interest survey and join us for the upcoming community meetings.
Thanks to Chris Itzen and his team for putting that together. These videos out there in the real world are very expensive to create, so it's really great to have a team that can put these things together in short notice to really just help take, like I say, these really complex bits of information and make them easily digestible. So go ahead and forward a few slides, 3 slides ahead. Thank you. So for everyone, all of those 1.4 million, please point your camera at your television right now, and anyone in this room who wishes to do it as well. You can. This slide is designed for you to actually point your camera at the television or at your computer screen and go directly to that link. We're really excited to be kind of just ramping up our communications efforts in all areas, but this one in particular, we've decided that we do want everyone to know what's happening. We want them to be well informed, and we want to get as much feedback as possible when it comes time to look at these proposed maps. So thanks to the entire communications team for their efforts, and we're open to any questions if you have them at this point.
Colleagues.
Yes. I'm looking at our website, and I'm looking at the comparison maps, and as I scroll down, I see the part past the, map of the current, the current borders, the little part that says how to get involved, communities of interest survey, November community meetings. They have the dates for the meetings, but not the Zoom information.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if we can have that, the actual
We're gonna add those
information
live
right
links.
there, so you don't have to.
You're absolutely right. That's just one thing that we have to add, and it can happen ASAP. We're just going to add those live links to that section right there. But thank you for that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Otto.
I know that we, at the last meeting, talked about, was it possible to do targeted outreach to groups that we knew historically we're not voting, did we, was there any way to do that? I know what I'm hearing is we're sending information out to everybody, and which is great. I mean, we're really to be complimented for that. I'm just wondering whether there was any other efforts to think about people that, or areas that we have low voter turnout, other indicia of need to be reached.
You know, we did have that debate. We kind of went back and forth on whether we should target our mailers to the communities that were directly affected by the changes in the map.
Right.
Ultimately, we did decide that it was important that everyone in the city got this information. But one thing, you bring up a good point, and we've had some conversations and have done some initial outreach to see how the district can partner with our I'm not sure the exact name of the group, but our voting registrar to almost partner in a get out and vote campaign or some kind of are you registered to vote campaign. It's not something that can necessarily happen overnight, but we are having those conversations to be able to say this is part of your civic duty, voting, and we understand that we're sending you, everyone's going to get these maps, whether they're get the mailer, whether they're registered to vote or not. And so it would be wise eventually to be able to maybe partner with the city and say, hey, let's get out the word about registering to vote. But that's something that we're kind of in process working on.
Yeah. How about specific community groups that service those communities? Have we made specific outreach to? Yeah.
So there was that one slide that showed the committee presentations, and I glanced over it, but I'll go back to slide 19. Mm-hmm. You've got at the bottom there, you've got DLAC, you've got IONA, CAP, DCAP, and the Pacific Islander Group. Those are the specific community organizations that we have targeted, that we will target our outreach to. Mm-hmm. And there is another long list. I actually didn't say that, but there's a long list of our community partners that all include some of those special groups, those marginalized groups that we're going to continue to work with to make sure that we get this word out to these groups.
Good.
So they're not, I just want to be assured that they're not forgotten when it comes to our outreach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I
Go
got
ahead,
a quick
Mr.
one.
Miller.
I love the video. I thought it was quick, to the point, clean. So hopefully that spreads the knowledge that we all hear today. If any of those, we got plenty of followers today paying attention to this meeting, but if someone feels like they missed it, as most of the world does, they feel like that they need to be a part, they can check out the video as well. So great work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I want to add to Mr. Otto's point and question. I'm super concerned now that we have less than a month, and appreciate the mailer going out, appreciate the communications pieces, but really, and I don't know how else to highlight this, what you just iterated, Justin, that the goal here for community engagement is clearly to reach as many people as possible, right? That's I think all of us would agree with that. But specifically with, because of the communities that are under consideration, our communities of interest and our race and ethnicity subgroups, which then include the targeted neighborhoods that will be most impacted by these maps. For precisely, you said the word, Justin, because they've been historically marginalized. And with less than a month to go here, great that we have 84, but things like James going out to the Lincoln event matter, right? We had a couple hundred people there, right, James? But I think that's, given the short turnaround, I'm not going to say we could have, should have, but we could have had, at the next community event, 2 laptops there, James. I mean, we literally could have had 20, 30 people at that event in a community that represents communities of interest, that impacts areas under consideration with the maps. So the last piece here is, I appreciate the opportunity for us to share this information with some of the groups that you put up there, Justin, but there's an education piece here for our communities that we can build on. And this is a conversation that Dr. Baker and I had, we touched base on, okay, what are we really looking at for the community engagement? This isn't the end-all, be-all of community engagement. As we discussed yesterday, we're going to be meeting with community members, right? And we just don't have a history. Individually, we may have histories, but as a system in engaging in community. So even though redistricting may not seem like the sexiest thing to engage in, it's a building block. We have community partners that have specifically reached out to us that said, let us help. And it's great that we have a flyer to give them, but we need boots on the ground at this point. And if community partners are saying to us, you know, we need laptops, blow up a couple of maps for us. We have events coming up. We had Dia de los Muertos events this past weekend. I know I realize quick turnaround, but we have holidays coming up, third week of this month. We're not going to have access to folks, and I'm really concerned about the lack of community engagement because of the time, right? Because we don't have a lot of time. So if we're going to rely on digital communication, then I do have one strong suggestion. We can't just ask folks, what do you like about the map scenario? We have to provide some basis for what they're looking for. So even if it's just a paragraph, some bullet points that are highlighting, these are the things that we're looking for, right? It's not an open-ended, what do you like about the map? Right, because then on what basis do I form an opinion about what I like or don't like? So we do need to describe in some way, accessible way, what they should be looking for. Not telling them which ones they should like, but we should say something about communities of interest, right? We should say something about protected groups. We should say something, an explanation about voting, citizen voting. Particularly if we're asking for folks 2 prompts, what do you like, what can be improved? It's not an open-ended, hey, I like that it's in this boundary. That's one element of it. The variance is important, the total population is important, but I'm super concerned that, 1, we're not getting enough involvement, but 2, we're not providing enough information because of the challenges that we have for folks to want to be included in this. So, James, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but we had an opportunity there at Lincoln, James. I'm glad you were there. We passed out flyers. I don't know what the return, and Justin asked me, so what's the return on investment? The return on investment is not how many flyers we passed out, although it was great for James to be there. So I just hope that if community partners are listening within that 1.4 million that are watching, that they contact you, me, Justin, James, and because they've shared it with me, we have events coming up. We're meeting with people. All we really need here is a laptop and a 5-minute explanation. And the video is a good start, but a 5-minute explanation just outlining, here's what it is. Here's what we're asking you to look for in these maps. And then the prompt. What do you like? What can be improved? But it has to be targeted. I mean, I can't get around. It has to be targeted because we know who's going to respond to those mailers. And I made this point at the last meeting. It will be our most engaged, highest propensity voters, right, that are used to getting political mailers and political engagement stuff. And we have a missed opportunity here, not just for redistricting, but for all of our community engagement efforts. So we only have this opportunity. I mean, I pontificated there a little bit, but we don't have another meeting until after our first redistricting meetings for our community. So I say it to build on the work, because I wouldn't have been able to say this comment if we didn't have all of these things online now. But if we are going to rely mostly on digital access, and we know that the digital access presents a lot of challenges and barriers for our communities of interest, then I think, again, we got 3 weeks to figure out how else do we do a targeted engagement, and Mr. Otto suggested. Anything else?
So, and just to give an example of how this stuff works, I was on a Zoom call which had to do with the city's redistricting, which is different, as we all know. They've got almost twice as many things. But it was very impactful because things got changed right away. Very engaged group. last night after our stuff here, I was working with a client on doing something, and I stopped by the last 15 minutes of the Century Club meeting, which is a group of people who support youth sports. And at that meeting, or after that meeting, two people who live in Rossmore separately came up to me and said, what is this about? They're trying to move Rossmore into Long Beach, and what's going on? And I thought, I haven't paid any attention at all to congressional stuff or statewide stuff and all that. And the guy said, well, I'm going to send you something. I got this flyer or whatever. But I mean, so people get engaged at things that interest them for whatever reasons. I don't know anything. I haven't gotten anything from them. I mean, this was last night, so maybe there's more to be had. But the point is just that people, the difficulty with this whole redistricting thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that we as a board are going to make some policy decisions about what the best scenario is for this redistricting. The people out there are narrowly focused on how it affects them individually, and it's like oil and water. They're just two different bases for doing it, and it is counterintuitive. It's really difficult to kind of get into it and make the right decisions about it. But we have to try, and we have to. That's why I think we both talked about targeting things to the extent we possibly could to say, okay, these are people that need to be engaged in a way. They're part of our district, and we need to find ways to reach them. And I share what Juan said about a flyer isn't going to do it. And by the way, as we were talking about it, I was thinking, so what are the metrics that we have about how well we did on this? How do we say at the end of it, we did a good job or we didn't do a good job? And I don't know. I mean, but there are some things that we can do. And you're right. It's like in the old days they used to say, well, we're going to come up with this plan. We need more community engagement. We're going to have 20 meetings. And you go, about what? I mean, so here, are we getting people that are they voter rolls? Are they, people that voted? I mean, I just don't know, but we ought to be thinking about those things because there's different engagement for different people, and what we want is the most engagement that we can from people in our district. So we think about those things.
Ms. Kerr?
Yeah, just a quick question, James. On lbschools.net/redistricting, is it possible, so in that first paragraph between the gold bar and the feedback for draft maps, it has a little explainer about what redistricting is. Is it possible to somehow put almost this exact thing in there?
Absolutely.
Because as I was reading through some of the comments, there are some misunderstandings about, clearly there are some misunderstandings about why we're drawing the lines the way we are in terms of size. And again, it has to do with an understanding. If you're not familiar with certain parts of town, you may not realize that a 4-block radius has 1,000 people in it because it's multifamily housing or how it's zoned. So there's lots of nuances. But if we could put the consideration for voting areas, because it does talk about the Voting Rights Act, it talks about the math as much as possible, and local considerations. So as they're potentially answering those questions, if we don't modify the questions, it gives some context for the things that we have to do with the maps, and that their input helps as part of what we're gonna, what we have to legally consider to do the work, and that they are part of that conversation. So maybe there's a way within on that front website to do that, and maybe even at the top of the survey, that we want your input, understanding that the process requires us to consider these things, and your input is that other local considerations or communities of interest. That just puts it out front in those two places. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. That can be done, no problem.
Anything else, colleagues? Okay, thank you, James. And again, I don't want to diminish or discount. We ramped up quick, but we got 3 weeks left. So I think with that,
Duly
we
noted.
will, thank you. We will break for lunch.